There is a mini USSR within the heart of the United States. A bunch of anarcho-communists decided to play as little conquistadors and managed to colonize an area of 8 blocks, and they call it the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. This is absolutely ridiculous. Many people in the media call it as if it's a country or something, when in reality it's something that we have in Europe all the time. You can go on Wikipedia and you can look for no-go zone. It's what happens when the police stops going into a neighborhood and elements of the criminal underworld take over. It's nothing new, it's nothing bewildering. I guess the only thing here is that these people who are doing this seem to be white bourgeoisie twats that are live action role playing as if they're the founding fathers of a new country, which has very strict border control, suppression of the press, and armed militia are patrolling the streets. But I will dedicate another video to all of this because it would require for me to go through 30 or 40 minutes in order to talk about it. The only thing that I want to add here is that a lot of people on the left who are supporting of this, they're like, oh, look, they're feeding the homeless. They are giving free stuff to people. They are giving marginalized voices a platform to speak. Isn't that great? And my question is like, okay, but why couldn't they do this without terrorizing the local population? Like, why can't they do this anywhere else? Is that forbidden from doing the things that you just said? So yeah, but you know, like that's a conversation for a different video. The interesting thing is that they have a list of demands. And this is absolutely ridiculous. Again, demands. It's something that you usually see students in the United States doing it, like a list of demands. It's like, in order to make a demand, you have to come from a position of power, and there also needs to be or else. Like, or else what? What happens if they don't give in your demands? And not to mention, like, their list of demands from their little tiny USSR over there is going to affect millions of people within the city of Seattle. What if the people of Seattle don't agree, but the people in power do agree? Like, what then, huh? And by the way, like, a lot of Romanians don't understand, like, why is this allowed to exist? Because most people, when they hear about something like this, they think it's like, what would happen if in our country, in Romania, you'd have a bunch of hooligans, as we would call them, deciding to take over a neighborhood. I mean, the police would try to stop the people from around the neighborhood for not kicking their ass. That's what would happen here, in my country. In America, there is no political motivation in order to stop them. The mayor probably is waiting for the US president to intervene on force so she can go, oh, look what a fascist. And the US president is probably going like, well, this is some really good promotional ad for my campaign. It's like, do you want this to happen in your city? If yes, vote for Democrat. So really, there is no political will. People are probably expecting that they will get bored and go to their house anytime soon. So let's look at the demands. Demands. Abolition of the Seattle Police Department and attached court system. So they're against the judges as well. We do not request reform, we demand abolition. This means 100% of funding, including existing pensions for Seattle Police. So in other words, even if you're an old retired officer who did absolutely nothing wrong, like you have a clean sheet, you just did your job, and now, you know, you planned your life based around the idea that you're going to have a pension. Like maybe you'd do something differently if you didn't have that pension. Doesn't matter. You can be 73-year-old, now the state is not going to give your pension. Like, this would violate contract law. It would be illegal. It would show that the state is being disingenuous, that it doesn't honor its contracts. It would have massive ramifications. But again, like, this is what happens when you support communism. You know, it's just like they don't care. They literally do not care. As for abolishing the police and the court systems, we used to have this system. The system was called mob rule. In medieval society, more often than not, this was the situation. So the mob would just go out in order to punish someone that they thought would transgress. Obviously, this does not allow the person being punished the opportunity to convince the mob that he is innocent. There are many problems that I'm pretty sure you guys can understand why we do not use the same mob justice system, but it's the system that the owners of CHAZ are demanding, as well as the disallowal or the operation of ICE. Again, this is really funny considering that they not only have strict borders, like the first thing they did was to put up a fence and put up borders surrounding their little USSR and strict controlling the people who get in and out. And we're not only talking about like police officers, but they're also controlling people like the press. There were people from the press saying they weren't allowed in because the people inside didn't agree with their publication. In the transitionary period, look how optimistic they are. Like they legitimately think that, okay, point one, we're going to go with no problem. So they even now suggest in the transitionary period, between now and the dismantlement of the Seattle Police Department, we demand that the use of armed force be banned entirely. Again, you can see these people on the media. They're walking around with guns within the, I guess, the CHAZ, the mini USSR they created. They have people with guns patrolling the streets. But they're against the use of armed force. We demand that the people of Seattle seek out and proudly support Black-owned businesses. Your money is our power and sustainability. This is what really infuriates me about communism. Like, this is what, like, even if you would have a coherent ideology, and it would be 100% like positive, it would still be oppressive as fuck. Just because of this thing, and I'll tell you why. It's not the prejudice, okay? Because like, we're just going to discriminate based on skin color. It's like, if it's a black-owned business, I need to support it. Okay, right. Reverse Kristallnacht, I guess. No, that's not the issue. That's not the issue. It's like, you need to proudly support it. So if I just go there and I support it, and I'm grumpy about it, that's not okay. No. Like, they want to control not only your thoughts about what you think, but they want to control your emotions as well. And again, like, I know for a Westerner, you do not understand how it's like. Like, when the great deer leader goes through your town, and everyone has to go out, like, your force, doesn't matter. You have a funeral in your family, they don't care. You need to go out and be really happy and cheer and applaud and pretend it's like the best thing on earth happening there. It actually happened in my country. You know, like, this is just a microcosmos, like a social experiment with what these people want. They're not happy if you just do the correct things. They're not happy if you think the correct thing. They want to control even your emotions. Like, every single aspect, every single fiber of your being needs to be controlled by the ideology. It is so disgusting. My God. We demand that not the city government, and not to mention, like, I'm going back to this because I'm pissed off. Like, these demands are for the city government, right? How can the city government enforce that the people like, this is why what really pisses me off, like, proudly support businesses. How can the city council enforce this without being tyrannical? We demand that not the city government nor the state government, but that the federal government launch a full-scale investigation into past and current cases of police brutality in Seattle and Washington. I don't mind investigations. It's like, if you have a suspicion on something, like you have a suspicious activity or something, feel free to investigate. Reparations for victims of police brutality in a form to be determined. I'm really curious, like, what if you're a white person and you're the victim of a police brutality? Would you think they care? But what about, you know, like, they keep talking about reparations for police brutality. Okay. What about the police that are the victims of brutality from criminals? What about them? Like, can we have a conversation? Probably not. They would just, no. We can't have a conversation about that. Retrial of all people of color currently serving a prison sentence for violent crime. And this is why they're absolute morons. Like, no, seriously, let's back up a bit, okay? So literally, the first thing they want is abolition of the police department and abolition of the court system. And then they want retrial of all people of color. Where are they going to be retrialed? There are no more courts, you morons. Who's going to enforce all of this shit that you want? Oh, probably their militia is going. What do you do when the opposite militia shows up? This is why we have police, to prevent civilians from taking matters in their own hands. But oh, Dios mío. So they probably believe that all people of color are being serving prison sentences for illegitimate reasons, right? And like the jury of their peers from their community. That's very interesting. Like if that system was real, okay, if there was such a system, let's go back a little bit when the Italian mafia was a thing, right? Let's assume that whenever a mobster was arrested by the cops, and he would be taken to jail, then to court. The only way to sentence him would be from his peers. Okay, well, the mafia could just give money to all of their peers in their community to always vote innocent. You dumb fucks. They just don't understand like human nature at all. They literally don't understand it. And they also think like every single person of color is probably in jail for no reason, because they look at the number of black people in prison and they say, well, the number is higher, therefore racismus. But by the same logic, you can look at prisons and say, well, the male population is higher than the female and therefore sexismus. Like, there might be other reasons that you haven't thought about it, either than racism. I'm just saying. Replace the current criminal justice system, the creation of restorative, transformative accountability programs as replacement for imprisonment. Okay, what if you have someone that's really sick? You know, someone that's like a mass murderer, or someone that El Chapo. Okay, do you think El Chapo is going to benefit from a restorative, transformative accountability program? What about like a pedophile? Do you think they're going to like benefit from this? No, they need to be locked up. Like a lot of criminals, they fear the stick. And there are some bad people out there. Like every time the far left talks about criminals, they usually talk about people selling marijuana and people that steal a loaf of bread because they're hungry. They never set foot in a prison, ever. Like, they don't know the people that are locked there. They don't know, like, what it means to live in a dangerous place, because all of these people are rich bourgeoisie, middle-class twats. But anyway, apparently, like, there's a warlord in there that is now oppressing the rich white bourgeoisie twats as well as the Black Lives Matter supporters. It's coming up in another video. To me, this is, I would want to say it's a good thing that's happening because these people are living, walking, breathing red pills. But in another word, like, there are people living in that neighborhood. Not all of them agree with this shit. They don't deserve this. No one deserves this. It's horrible. But, it is what it is. I guess, like, the government allows these people to just have their way and, send a message that I guess if you have the correct ideology and you want to do reprehensible things, as well as you're in Seattle, you can have a chance there. The police chief is saying that there are calls of burglaries and rapes happening within this place and they can't get into it because the mayor doesn't allow them. So just so you understand, it's funny. Don't get me wrong. It's funny to see how communists are having their way and reminding me why communism is a bad ideology. But it's so sad because they're actual human beings living there and they don't deserve this. Finally, there was like one more thing that I wanted to add. How many people need to suffer in order to implement this wasn't real communism? Because I'm pretty sure that's what they're going to claim. This isn't real communism. It's like, okay, how much human misery, destruction of property and livelihoods, and the fact that people put souls into businesses and they invest so much. How much of that does it need to be destroyed and vandalized so you can implement the not real communism?